Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a good week. Did you manage to get some build sessions in? Did you manage to watch some build sessions yet? No, not me neither. It's one of those real challenges, isn't it, with a virtual conference of how to find the time to watch the sessions unless you're there in person. I find it really, really tough. I know that's probably just bad time planning and you need to make the time. I will be making the time over the next few days. I've committed this week to watch some sessions. It's really annoying because the tech interest part of me also wants to go and see some WWDC stuff. So I'm just trying to box that, and I'll come back to that later. But that's just kind of general interest rather than teams and dev stuff. But I do really want to get into some session content from build. There's lots of things that keep happening though. And so hopefully this week I can keep you updated with the announcements that have taken place since build, because things carry on. I do think if we consider sort of the Microsoft year, you've got Microsoft Build, you've got Inspire in July, and you've got Ignite towards the end of the year. And I think we're probably about to enter a slightly quieter period, probably. So we've got obviously build, and lots of teams work up to build. And so they plan for announcements at build, and not all of those announcements take place. And I think actually, interestingly, this year, because of all the AI stuff, because of the copilot stuff, probably lots of announcements didn't make it into build, certainly not into the keynote, and maybe even not into the sessions. So you'll see those drip out kind of this week, next week, as those teams kind of then deliver on those things that they've been working towards. Then I think you'll see a slowdown because over the summer months, it does get quieter. Lots of folks at Microsoft take off on vacation, through July, August time. And then we'll start to see it get busier again to September time as teams start to think about their big announcements for Ignite. So really roughly, I think that's what we can expect. So we can expect maybe a little bit of a slowdown starting from maybe next week, maybe the week after, as we get into sort of mid to end of June into July. Anyway, lots of things happening this week though, so let's get right into it. The first thing I want to tell you about is kind of exciting if you're a developer or an ISV looking to find that edge and find how you can be a little bit different and differentiate a little bit. And that is to go and write solutions that use Microsoft Viva Connections, because you can now take connection solutions and put them in AppSource. AppSource now has its own special place, its own special category for Viva Connections. So if you've already written things for Viva Connections, then it's worth going back to AppSource and your configuration for AppSource and making sure that you're up to date there with to make sure that your apps show up in that place as well. So there's a blog post here by Vesa Juvonen, just kind of talking through the fact that there's this whole, you can see now on this screenshot, there's a Viva product type that shows in AppSource. So that's going to be really useful. Like I say, if you've already got solutions packaged that can use this, you'll probably want to go and update the entry you've got in AppSource. But also it's a good reason to go and start building for solutions as well, because this is going to make them much more discoverable for people looking on AppSource for things. There's also some kind of new stuff, which is kind of interesting. This is like an integration with the store, so that as you're adding things to the dashboard, the Viva Connections dashboard, it's going to surface and suggest things that it finds in the store. So that's another great reason to make sure your AppSource manifest is up to date if you do offer this, because it's going to make your app so much more discoverable. So this is really interesting. So that's really good to see. It's good to see kind of Viva Connections get its own space. It makes complete sense. And also it shows that Microsoft are continuing to invest in places like Connections. It's not all just about Copilot. There are other things happening as well, and this is kind of a good example of that. It is a lot about Copilot though, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. So last week I talked through this quite a bit, and it made one of my top 6 things for developers to take away from build. And if you haven't seen that blog post, there's a link in it from last week, I think. My top 6 things for Microsoft Teams developers to take away from Microsoft Build. One of them was the Teams AI library. And now there's a blog, like a follow-up blog post, if you like, just going through some of the detail and really kind of reiterating that message, because what often happens is with build, there's just so many things happening. It's hard to get the message across and the messages get missed. So teams often follow up a few weeks later with talking about their announcement because they know maybe it just got lost in the big sea. So this is one of those, talking about the new Teams AI library and how you can build your own copilot, your app's copilot into Microsoft Teams. Basically, it's a set of scaffolding and templates to make it easier to build a bot experience around a large language model. That's very useful though, because it's what everybody wants to do. So if you've got a large language model, of course, you probably want to build a bot around it. If you've already got one, that's great. If you don't, it's worth checking out this Teams AI library. And now there's a nice blog post with a video to just go through and help you kind of understand. To be honest, if I'm being kind of brutal, the thing to hone in on here is the video. The blog post is nice, but it's a lot of repeated information. These bullet points are repeated from the documentation. So really go check out the video as well. The video is kind of useful, but it just gives you a bit more information. I am going to be doing like a walkthrough thing, probably, I'm not quite sure when, once I get my head around it and I can talk about it in authoritatively. We'll go through like a soup to nuts how you actually go and put it all together. So if that sounds interesting, let me know, and I can kind of bump it up the to-do list. That's sort of on one of the things I wanted to do, and I just kind of haven't got a chance to do yet. All right, let's go on to something else. Again, like I say, there's things happening all over the place, and I was really lucky actually to see a little preview of this a couple of weeks ago at the European Collab Summit with Waldeck and Gary. It was great to meet them and catch up with them again in person, which was in Germany, which was really, really nice. But now there's a blog post talking all about the latest version of Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy, which is 0.8. It's getting pretty close to that V1, just saying, 0.8. And this has got some 2 or 3 actually, but some really cool features in it I want to take you through. The first one, which I think is really, really cool. So you've got an application that uses Microsoft Graph, and you've put the proxy around it. So you've been using it to test things like throttling and performance and all these good things. And now you're ready to go to production. And so you need to go and ask your IT team, or you need to go and write down in documentation what customers need to go and ask their IT team for in terms of permissions. How do you know what permissions you need? Well, normally what you'd have to do is just kind of think about the things your app does. Maybe go and check the APIs, go and check the documentation, build up a list of permissions. And if you're not sure, add a few more just in case. That's what most people do, right? So there's a new way of doing this now with the developer proxy. You can basically turn on like a recording mode of the developer proxy, go run your application for a bit, then stop it. It will look at all the calls you made, and then it will tell you the minimum permission set that you need to run this application. How cool is that? It does all that hard work for you. This is really, really neat. So there's a whole blog post about it. And yeah, you can see here, it tells you at the bottom, these are the minimum permissions you need to run the things that it's just run. I really like this. I think it's going to be super, super useful. It's going to be, if I was an IT admin, I would demand to see this screenshot rather than taking it from developers that, oh yeah, we definitely need all these like read-write permissions. We definitely do. I would demand to see the okay, run it in the proxy, record it and show me the screenshot, because that that is, that's going to be the authoritative source really of the actual permissions that are needed. So I think this is really, really cool. There's some other things in here, improved simulating throttling, and some caching guidance as well, which is interesting, kind of calling out, oh, hey, you've just made another call like that one that you just made 5 seconds ago. So you could actually probably cache those, things like that. Really nice. It'd be interesting to see kind of where that goes. And yeah, what's really nice as well, so I saw the session that they did at the European Collab Summit. If you didn't see it because you weren't there, then you can go and sign up for this. So they're going to show the demo again on the Microsoft 365 Power Platform call. So go here to sign up for that to make sure that when it happens, you're aware of it. It's a very cool demo. You should definitely watch it. It's nice. And Gavin, sorry, Gavin, I forgot to mention your name. You were not in this list at the top. But anyway, the 3 of them, Waldeck, Gary, and Gavin, gave a astonishingly good demo and kind of just background information about the developer proxy, and again showed off some of these cool features. And yeah, I'm excited now to get my hands on them and use them. Like I say, I think that minimum permission thing is going to land really, really well with enterprises. I think it's a great idea. I think the challenge is going to be that making sure enterprises know about it. So that's kind of going to be my job. I'm going to try and always make sure that IT admins are demanding to see the output there of that minimum permission thing. And actually, it also shows it's a great thing to ask for, because it forces developers to go and put in the proxy, because if they put in then when they put in the proxy, they're going to get all those other benefits of the throttling, checking, caching guidance, and all the rest of it. So as an IT person, as an enterprise person, I would demand this output because it forces good practice all the way down the dev stack. So that's my takeaway. And one more thing to leave you with, and that is Azure Communication Services, which we haven't spoken about yet and today, but there's lots of interesting things happening there as well. And one of those is that I talk a lot about Azure Communication Services, about the different tools, and about how you can use it to build websites and web experiences for customers or internal staff, using Teams as the identity, using ACS as the identity, lots and lots of different options. What I don't talk about very much is Windows apps, but there is actually an SDK for Azure Communication Services calling to allow you to make and receive calls and video and audio using a Windows application. Okay, it's called the Azure Communication Services Calling SDK for Windows, and it's now GA. It's been in preview for a while. It's now GA, so you can get it yourself. And yeah, it's exactly what you think it is. It's a Windows SDK. That actually means you can put it on desktop PCs. It also means you can put it on Xboxes, IoT devices. You can put it in lots of different places. So I think this is cool. It's good. It's compatible with C# applications. It's also compatible with C++ Win32 apps. I haven't tested that. I have no way of testing it. I'm not a C++ developer. I'm sorry. But it's interesting. So you can do it in UWP. You can do it in WinUI. So it's got the whole thing. So it's really cool. Calling over HoloLens. That's interesting. There's a great screenshot there of what looks like to be a surgeon wearing a HoloLens type system. Very interesting. So there's lots going on there. But if you've been waiting for that, just be aware that there is now a Windows client. Sorry, not client. There's a Windows SDK for Azure calling, so you can do that kind of making and receiving calls using a Windows application. Kind of exciting. It's good to see. It's good to see Windows applications and Windows SDKs are still relevant. I firmly believe they are still relevant. I think they're going to become more relevant with VR stuff if the VR stuff takes off. And again, is the VR stuff going to take off? We don't. I actually thought it was gone away again for a bit, and I thought it was going to go away for a few years. But Apple's interest in it, maybe Apple's interest in it is enough to restart the whole ecosystem. Across different technologies, it might be enough to restart it in the industry. Don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see. It's an interesting time. There's lots and lots going on, and it can be a struggle to keep up, can't it? Anyway, I think that's everything from me this week. I'm sure I've left things out because I always leave stuff out. But anyway, I hope it's been useful. I hope you have a good week, whatever it is you're doing, and I will speak to you again next time.